Hello, and welcome to today's Cuppa SEO webinar. I'm Joey Donovan Guido, the owner of Cuppa SEO, and today's webinar is Blogging 101. All right, so for the next 60 minutes, we're going to be talking about all kinds of different facets of blogging. And before we dive in, a couple of very easy technical things I want to run by you guys. I very much enjoy having my webinars and workshops be as interactive as possible. Okay, so since we're not all in the same room to just chat and answer questions, you guys are going to see a way to chat online. So what you can do is in the upper left-hand corner of your screen on webinars on air, you're going to see a little dialog bubble. Okay, when you click on that, you should see a panel open up on the right-hand side of your screen. And that whole top part will be where we have our conversations, but down at the bottom, there's a little line separating. And if you click in there, I'm going to just say hello to everybody by doing that. Hey, Kim, I'm glad you're here too. Already got somebody chatting. That's awesome. So there's my test hello. Okay. So anyway, that's how you guys can communicate. And please, if you have a question or a comment, anytime during these 60 minutes, go ahead and type it up. I may not answer it immediately, but I will address it before the webinar is over. If it's a question that's too big for a 60-minute webinar, we can always have a discussion via email, or if you're local, over a cup of coffee. All right. So my first question for you guys, and feel free to answer or not, is what is the purpose of a blog? What is your definition of it? And while I let you guys type, we'll start talking about that. A blog, let's talk about what a blog is not to begin with. A blog is not a way for a hard sell. All right. And years ago when blogging was new, I had worked for a few clients and they were really intent on my using their blog as a way to improve their ROI and really just to sell. All right. And even in its infancy, I knew that blogging wasn't for that. Blogging, in a nutshell, if you could just put it into a few words, is a way to build relationships. Okay. So whether you have services you offer, products, or an opinion, let's say you're into organic food, or vegetarian. Or if you're in my household lately, we have decided to go gluten-free. So any of these things might be good reasons to blog, right? But it's really to develop that connection with others. That's kind of the baseline of it. And Kim, as everybody can see if you've got your chat window open, Kim says that a blog is meant to give your knowledge to others to learn, in which you can build your expertise. And yes, you want to be the expert. That is absolutely true. And I think Kim really hit the nail on the head, sharing your knowledge. I cannot tell you how many people, how many clients say to me, Joey, I don't know what to say on a blog. I have nothing to say. And this is probably 80% of the time that I hear this comment. And it's kind of funny because, you know, we are so used to doing what we do every day, day in and day out, that we don't even realize, many of us, that we are experts at what we do. So for me, of course, that's search engine optimization, web design, and of course, blogging, right? For Tarek, who has just made a comment, that is working with young adults and teenagers to kind of get them out of dire straits sometimes and help them have a better life for themselves. And Tarek's organization, which is called Fly, F-L-Y-Y, also works with families. Okay? Now think about all the incredible information that Tarek has to share with people who might be interested in getting young adults help, right? So yes, sharing, giving good professional knowledge, showing that you're the expert, right? You know, oftentimes on Facebook, people share other people's work, which is great to share. But when you do that, that makes you the messenger, not the originator. Okay. And a blog is a place for you, whether you're just a blogger or just a $50 million company or anywhere in between. It's a place for you to share your expertise, be perceived as a thought leader. And of course, when that perception is in place, we can garner more respect, and more organizations and people are going to want to work with us because we get known as the expert. Okay. So Tarek, Tarek has a comment. What is the purpose of a blog? To vent out frustrations. It can be, actually. You're just kidding. But yeah, some people do that. Some people use it as a platform to express their ideas or their concerns. Tarek also went on to say maybe from a business perspective is to build more connections. Yes, of course. But you got that from me, Tarek. So what we're going to do today is we're going to dive in and kind of look at some different aspects of a blog post. Okay. While we're talking, I've got to check one more time. My server for my website is DreamHost, and they're usually extremely dependable. But for some reason today, DreamHost is down. But we do have a backup plan in place. And that's going to be for us to take a look at my dad blog. Okay. So I just want to warn you in advance. I haven't blogged in a long time on my dad blog. And that's one of the best practices for blogging, is that we really want to blog at least once a week. Okay. But that's okay. For today, just keep in mind that my dad blog has not been given the attention that it deserves as of late. But the practices and how to write a blog post and all the things we're going to talk about are still the same. Okay. So anyway, let's make our way over to Daddy Brain. And for those of you who know me, I have a dad blog, and I also do dad's workshops, mostly at Meritor these days. And for a long time, this was the only blog I did. Many, many years ago. And it's how I actually learned how to blog professionally, how to blog for others, and really how to make the best use of a blog. All right. So for today, I've chosen to take a look with something I actually talk about on on Cuppa SEO as well, is the art of balance. All right. And if this is something you're struggling with, we won't talk about it today, but there is an article here on Daddy Brain, but also on Cuppa SEO, talking about balancing between work, self, and family, which is always a struggle, I think, for anybody who works. So, Parenting and the Art of Balance is the title of this blog post. But let's take a look at what makes up a good blog post. What are the elements? Okay, let's dissect this a bit and discuss how to write a blog post. So the first thing I want to show you guys is right up here. This is the title, Parenting and the Art of Balance. All right. When you write a title, there are a few contingencies that you're going to want to meet. All right. First one is that you want it to be clear. And by clear, I mean, what exactly is this blog post about? A lot of times, writers and non-writers get stuck in trying to be metaphorical or cute or write really interesting titles. And what winds up happening is they come off extremely ambiguous. So let's say somebody's searching for parenting, which was my keyword in that title. And three things come up, and one is parenting and the art of balance, which is mine. And one is parenting and the art of universal travel or something really like ambiguous and out there like that. Might be interesting, but what is it about? So we want it to be clear. We also want it to be compelling as possible while remaining natural. So in my case, I felt that just talking about the art of balance, which is something that every parent I know struggles with, that was pretty compelling. Okay. The third golden rule, so to speak, of a title is that you want it to be as concise as possible. All right. And a good rule here is that if you can keep your title at less than 70 characters, you should be in good shape. 50 or less is even better, but that can be kind of short. All right. Especially if you're doing a series, which I often do. So it might be something like a holistic guide to online marketing, which is also a webinar that I do. That had 6 parts. So each blog post led with a holistic guide to online marketing, part 1, yada, yada, part 2, yada, yada. Made it a little longer. Okay. So to reiterate, we want to be clear, compelling, and concise. And the 4th golden rule of blog titles is negotiable. Okay. And I say that because some people aren't overly comfortable with it, especially if they're not writers. And that would be creativity. All right. If you can inject a little bit of creativity, or sometimes I'll refer this kind of as like a romantic take on what you're saying to make it appear a little bit more enticing or engaging, great. If not, don't sweat it. As long as you're clear, concise, and compelling, you'll be okay. All right. So don't put that pressure on yourself, because what often happens is then we might fall into that trap of trying to be cute or creative, and then we get ambiguous. Okay. So let's check and see if anybody has questions at this point. Doesn't look like it. Let's go back to the Daddy Brain blog. And Daddy Brain is a really good example of a blogger, in this case me, who needed to be heard and needed to connect specifically with other dads out there who had struggles that I had. So, you know, kind of Tarek had jokingly earlier said to vent, all right? And I never did really take an opportunity to vent too much here on Daddy Brain, but I certainly did talk about a lot of very important topics like kids and discipline, exhaustion, goals, the art of balance, as you can see from here. Questions that needed answering, like, do you still have date night? Things that parents may not always think about that can really make a difference in their relationship within the family unit. So, and you've got to decide exactly, before we go any further with the content here, you've got to decide exactly what you want your voice to be and what you want to be focusing on in your blog. And that's something that comes over time. All right. So if you're just getting started, you start with what you know and what you think is going to be relevant to your audience, or that you know is going to be relevant. You know, for me, over time, I developed these really specific buckets that resonated with people. Okay. What you need to do is kind of make sure you're putting on, if you're a business, putting the lens on top of your blog and making sure you're representing your company in a way that's in alignment with that company identity, that branding. All right. So, and there's my kids. You can see there's Joss over my left shoulder there. And over here is Max. And I like to have them in the webinar because they're my kids. And they're a big part of my life, which is why Daddy Brain exists, right? So, back to the Daddy Brain blog. Once we get beyond the title, we've got what is commonly referred to as content or page copy. All right, and you guys will see here, I lead off with a question: do you have balance in your life? And we kind of go through what this article is going to be about, creating a strong foundational balance. What is your foundational balance? See what I'm doing here, guys? I've got some headlines going to break up the content. You are like a car. And then we finish up. But the secret, which really isn't a secret, to writing good page copy is before you start writing it, think about what the beginning, middle, and end is going to be. So here I wanted to kind of ask parents if they had a foundational balance, okay? And if they had balance in their life, they're probably not going to read this article, right? They probably wouldn't have even clicked through onto it. So I kind of already know the answer, but I want them to answer it themselves. I'm engaging them right from the get-go. What these guys are here, and also here, and down here, are subheadlines. And we use those in our content to help break it up, right? Because otherwise, this is just probably around a 600-word blog post that might be kind of daunting to look at if it's just paragraph after paragraph. So what we're going to write about here as far as content is going to be something that we're an expert at, or if you're not an expert yet, something that you're becoming an expert at, something that's rich and relevant to your customers or potential customers or your readers. Okay. What does that mean, rich or relevant? That's going to be something that is going to answer a question that maybe some of your clients have asked. Or maybe you see a recurring theme that you're always answering these same questions. For me, it's about social media. Clients come to me a lot and they tell me, hey, Joey, I need help with social media. And the first thing I do is let's put on the brakes, is what I tell them. I said, let's take a look at everything that's going on. And oftentimes they don't have a blog. So we look at that blog and look at how can we engage with people in a way that's going to be meaningful. Rich, relevant content is just stuff that's going to answer questions. That's going to maybe even address questions that reader didn't even know they had. Tarek has a question that I'd like to answer. Do you typically lead with a question? No, not usually, Tarek. It just happened to work out there. Every blog post is different. But I do like to lead kind of like with something that's an overview. And for those of you who have read the Cup SEO blog, you know that I usually romanticize a little bit and kind of get into it, asking a question or making a statement that, something like Google My Business is confusing. This blog post is going to talk about how to clarify things. So what I always like to lead with is an overview, kind of like a synopsis or a Cliff Notes version of what we're going to be talking about in that particular blog post. This way, right away, the reader can know, hey, this is important to me, or you know what, this isn't for me, right? And when we lead in like that with that overview, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about today, we're planting seeds. So later on, when we repeat some of those topics and flesh them out, it's not the first time somebody's seeing them. So it helps with retention as well. So, and if you've got another question, again, go ahead and click on that button right up here, which is a little dialog button. And on the right-hand side of your page, you'll get your chat panel, and go ahead and ask away. All right. So one more thing about content that I get asked quite often is, Joey, how long should my blog post be? I know at least one of you in the audience today is thinking that. And the short answer is it depends, okay? And it depends on a couple of factors. One factor of how long your blog post should be is who's your audience? One of my clients is Wyden, who's a local company. They do software development and applications, and it's pretty techy, which I kind of like, being a geeky guy. But one of our goals is to write what I call really deep content, or take a deep dive into the topic. So often for Wyden, we're writing blog posts that are anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000 words long. And those take 4 to 6 hours to write and optimize, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. So, that's one customer. Then I've done some blogging, of course, for myself, but other customers where their customer demographic was maybe they'd read 400 or 500 words. They weren't interested in these deep dives. They wanted a topic that was interesting or needed an answer to, and they wanted the answer to that and to be done. right? So generally that takes about 500 words, which if you're using 12-point font in Microsoft Word, it's 1 page, all right? With spaces and a title, it's 1 page. If you're not sure how long to write, I would say shoot for that to begin with, between 400 and 500 words, all right? This way you're giving your readers at least a little bit, enough to sink their teeth into without it being too long or too short. Now, the flip side of the 3,000-word blog post is something I've created called a bleat, B-L-E-E-T. And if you want to check out some bleats, I've got some on my website, uncuppaseo.com, and there are also some on daddybrain.wordpress.com. A bleat is the shortest blog post you ever want to write, okay? And it's called the bleat because it's the marriage of a tweet and a blog post, or a blog post and a tweet. Put them together, you got a bleat. And what that is 140 characters, which is what you get on Twitter, times 3. That's it, okay? And you think that probably sounds like pretty easy, right? What is that, 420 characters, including spaces, including your title and any links? It still takes 20 or 30 minutes to write a bleat, because to condense that content and your thoughts cohesively into 420 characters takes some thought. So why would I do a bleat instead of a 500-word blog post or a 1,500-word blog post? Well, this comes down to another reason that you'll need to decide upon as to how long your blog post should be. And that's time. How much time do you have to write a blog post? If you only have 20 or 30 minutes total to write it and upload it, we're going to look at what the editor side of WordPress looks like. That's what we're focusing on today is WordPress blogs. If you only have 20 or 30 minutes, then take the 20 or 30 minutes and utilize it and write a blog post. Don't get hung up on length, because you know what? 420 characters is a whole lot better than 0. Okay? So don't get hung up on length. Focus your attention on blogging once a week. All right. So we've got a question from Kim. Can you explain the keywords? Do you always do a hashtag, or is there a different place? So good question. I'm going to actually 2 questions there. I'm going to answer one now, and then we're going to answer the second one in a little bit. So guys, as far as hashtag, I don't recommend putting hashtags in your blog posts. I know some bloggers do it. Those bloggers are typically very heavily into social media, especially Twitter, okay? Now, if you're using social media to publicize your blog posts, that's a different story. Go ahead and use the hashtag on a keyword that makes sense. So for instance, if I'm talking about website design, right? So it might be something like website design that includes a great user experience. So on social media, I might put hashtag web design, okay? But don't do that on your blog, because it looks ugly. It's a bad user experience, speaking about user experience. And there's a lot of different schools of thought around it. Some people believe in it, some people don't. I don't recommend it just because it just doesn't look great. And then if somebody doesn't understand the methodology behind a hashtag, it looks like a typo. And now that authority we're looking to build gets whittled away instead of built up, all right? Talking about keywords, Kim and everybody else, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about search engine optimization and how to implement it into your blog, okay? So we talked about blog post frequency, once a week, blog post length. One other quick note about frequency: if you can blog 2 or 3 times a week, that's going to serve you even better. But I want to tell you why it's important to blog at least once a week. And what it has to do with is what's called the freshness factor. Okay. Google, when they go to your website, they're looking to see if you've got fresh content pushing through. Okay. And some SEO professionals who are less knowledgeable encourage their clients to always be changing the content on their website. That's really bad. One, it's really bad for your bank account because you're probably paying somebody to change your content and freshen up your keyword phraseologies, right? Two, it's really bad because it sets you back to zero in many ways with Google. So what happens is, it's almost like if you've got a phone number for your business, right? Do you change it every month? Of course not, because your clients, your customers, your colleagues are all depending on you to be on the other end of that phone number, okay? And when a website is optimized, Google crawls it and gets to know you by looking at the keyword phrases you're using on each page. It starts to depend on you being there. And it's depending on you because it's depending on those keywords to be there. Once you change it and somebody searches, like in my case for SEO in Madison, Wisconsin, if I change that keyword, guess who doesn't show up on a search result? Okay. So the question becomes not, should we be freshening up our website content? Because yes, we should. The question is, how do we do it effectively and legitimately and ethically so that our readers are happy and also that Google's happy with us, so we rank better, right? And when I'm talking about ranking better, all I'm talking about is showing up higher on natural results. So if somebody Googles, and you can do this right now, you can Google SEO Madison, and if no matter where you are in the world, well, you might have to put Wisconsin if you're in Italy right now. But if you Google SEO Madison, I'm going to come up at the top of the page. Okay. So, but we still need that freshness factor. And the way we get that is through our blog. Week in and week out, we blog once a week, and Google sees our website, and our blog is part of our website. And it says, oh, nice, fresh content. This website is serious about producing good work week after week. So you do it once, you do it twice, all of a sudden a year passes, you got 52 blog posts. And if you do this, I promise you, you'll look back and say, holy cow, how in the world did we write 52 blog posts? But you can do it. The trick is to look at it 1 week at a time. And I'm also going to give you some strategies on how to make this easier, because I understand this can be stress-inducing for most. Okay. So if you guys have any questions about frequency or anything that I just spoke about, please feel free to type it up. And before we move on to talking about search engine optimization, I want to bring up one more point about your website and your blog. Your website, in my case, cuppaseo.com, is what's referred to in the business as a URL, okay? That's my main URL. Every single page on my site, whether it's a sub page, a blog post, or a squeeze page, whatever, is a sub page of that main URL. So to give you an example, if you went to my About section, it would say www.cuppaseo.com/about. Okay? That means it's a subpage. Sometimes web designers, especially if they're not working in WordPress, or if you've got a site that's old and you're trying to kind of retrofit a blog into it, instead of creating your blog as a sub page or a set of sub pages, they set it up as a subdomain. Okay? Now, I know this can be tricky. This kind of sounds confusing. But a subdomain is actually a completely different website. So again, a sub page looks like cupseo.com/about or /blog, right? A subdomain looks like about.cupseo.com. And when your blog is a subdomain, it lives over here, and your website lives over here. And guess what this blog is doing for your website? Nothing good. At best, it may be getting you some links, okay? But at worst, this blog starts to compete with your website, and it starts to take traffic away. And then everybody who shows up on the blog, your website gets no credit for that. When your website is a sub page, they're all one, okay? And every visit to your blog, your whole website gets credit for that. And that improves your authority or your credibility with Google. And then they start little by little to up where you show up in search results. Okay, and this is getting into that search engine optimization that I promised. So just remember, if you're a Cuppa SEO client, you don't have to worry about this because we do it the right way. But if you have a web developer who's either added a blog for you or adding one, make sure you've got a sub page, not a subdomain. Okay? So, and Kim, looks like Kim had another question about their recommendation for number of words for the weekly blog posts. We talked about that. You know, if you want to get started, if you're not sure, shoot for 400 or 500 words. Okay? So let's head on back over to DaddyBrain, and we'll quickly try and see if DreamHost has resolved the problem so we can actually look at Cup SEO. If not, we'll look at the DaddyBrain post and talk about search engine optimization. All right, so here we are. Do a quick try. And this is, look at this, yay, woohoo! Everybody, round of applause. DreamHost has fixed their problem. So, without further ado, this is the Cuppa SEO website. And thank you, DaddyBrain, for getting us to this point. But we're going to go ahead and jump on over to this blog because it's going to give you a lot better example of how to optimize a blog post. Okay? So let's just go with the first one we see here. Google My Business, tip number 2. This is a series. We talked about that. Optimizing your about section. All right? And if this is foreign to you guys, Google My Business and optimizing Google My Business, we do a free workshop for that too. You can just go into the webinars tab here, okay, and click on it and sign up for it. It's complimentary. We hold them quarterly. All right. Matter of fact, you can sign up for any of these webinars if you like. As many times as you like. There's no limit. So, Cup SEO blog, we're going to dive into this particular blog post. Okay. Now, once we're here in WordPress, and this is going to be similar if you're using Drupal as far as what your editing side looks like. We're going to come down here. Oh, you know what? Sorry, guys. I got to log in. Moment of truth. Does Joey know his password? Okay, one more try, otherwise we'll hop back into DaddyBrain. Okay, not working. So, okay, my apologies. So instead, we'll come back to DaddyBrain to look on the back end. But let's go ahead and look at the customer-facing part of this blog post. So search engine optimization if you're not sure what that is, in a nutshell, is the use of keywords and relevant content on your blog, on your website, on your social media efforts to help you get found. All right. So with SEO, you're using keyword phraseologies that are going to be relevant to what you do. So in my case, it's SEO, web design, things like that. If you were a dentist, it would be dentist, dentist medicine, root canal, fillings, things like that. Typically, we make something, Cup SEO, we always make what we call a keyword report in order to determine which keyword you want to use on your blog, your website, and your social media, okay? So that's something we can do for you, but if you're not interested in having someone do a keyword report for you right now, you can do what I call a common sense keyword report. That's to sit down, talk to your coworkers, talk to your customers, and ask, hey, what keywords or keyword phrases do people use, or do we think people use to find us? Okay. Make a long list, and then at least you've got a common sense keyword list, all right, to implement. Once you've got that list, or if Cuppa SEO, some of you guys are Cuppa SEO clients and you know exactly what I'm talking about, you've got this beautiful list of dozens of keywords that are either really good to use, okay to use, or some fall into the dreaded do not use section. And they often fall there because they're not relevant or because nobody's looking for them. We do a lot of research as part of creating those reports, and it really gives us insight as to what people are searching for within the regions where we do business. And I'm sorry, guys, I hope I'm not getting too technical. I know sometimes I just get going. So let's say hypothetically, either you have a keyword report that we've made or you've made your own. How do you optimize the page or the blog post? First thing you want to do is get some keywords in your H1, your headline, okay? So for me, Google My Business is one of the keyword phrases that I used for this blog post. So there it is right up front, Google My Business, and also Google My Business tip. So now we've got two keyword phrases in there, right in the headline. And then depending on what your blog post is about, you'll want to use like-minded keyword phrases within the content itself. All right. So in this case, if we go to the bottom, we will see right down here, guys, tagged with, see this? I'm actually going to highlight it for you so you can see it clearly. Oops. User error. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So right here are all the keywords that I used as a tag. Okay. And when you put them here, that means that I'm actually using them in the copy too. If we just put them here and don't put them in the content, Google's not really going to care. What these things called tags do is identify. They're one of the identifiers to Google saying, hey, pay attention. This is what this blog post is about. So in this case, Google My Business About, Google My Business Tips, and of course, SEO. All right. So we're putting that in our headline, and we're putting these same keywords throughout the content. I chose not to optimize these guys here. These are subheads or H3s. That was a choice I made, but typically I'll advise clients to put at least one keyword phrase in there if they can. It didn't feel right here, and this is a very confusing subject to people, so I kept it simple. Now, you guys see I've got one image here, and then I've got a second image here. All right. Each of these images are also optimized. So what I did was, in these cases, I took keyword phrases that were relevant to this blog post, and I inserted them into the image name for this image and for this piece of art that we made, okay? That's another place you're going to want to optimize. So how do we do that? Unfortunately, we don't have time to go step by step through how to optimize an image, but I'm going to tell you quickly how it's done. What you do is you would take any image that you're looking to put onto your website, blog, or social media, drag it onto your desktop, or just go to it in whatever file it's in, okay? And typically, what you guys will see below the image is the image name. Oftentimes, it might be 12684.jpg, right? Or if somebody's taken this photo for you, it might say homepage image, or it might say logo.png, which means absolutely nothing to people. Absolutely nothing. So, I'm sorry guys, it looks like maybe, I cannot see the words or tags you're showing. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that. It didn't take. Let's rewind. Okay. So, going back to it, because nobody saw it, I apologize, guys. Here's the H1 or the headline where we've got Google My Business and Google My Business tip in there, okay, as a keyword. And then what I was showing you down at the bottom of the blog post, it's got down here, see where it says tagged with Google My Business About, Google My Business Tips, and SEO. You can actually enter that into your tags section in the editing side of your blog, okay? And then we also want to get those keywords throughout the body copy and where possible in your H3s. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, if we come back here, here's a good one. So this one is about conversion. So you see with one of the keywords is conversion, one is web design, and one is web design testing. So we've got it up here. This image is also named with some of those keywords. And here's a better example of naming those subheaders. What is conversion? Let's talk about website conversion and testing. So we've got some of those keyword phrases right in the headlines, okay, going throughout the body of the blog post. This is a bit of a longer one, as you guys can see. And what happens is it becomes super important to break up longer blog posts with these identifiers, with these headlines, okay? Let's say, for instance, I know what conversion is. I can skip that and get to the testing part of the blog post. So what we were talking about earlier was this image here, everybody, and also this image here, which I have named accordingly, okay, to reflect some of the keyword phrases that I'm using in this blog post. So in order to name that, you've got to get to the image on your hard drive, in Dropbox, wherever it lives, and you've got to click on the image name so it gets highlighted, right? Once that image name is highlighted, you can change it. So to give you an idea of what I might name this particular image right here, I might name it Google My Business Tips from Cuppa SEO. Okay. But here's the thing, when I name the image, I can't just say Google My Business Tips by Cuppa SEO. I've got to format it in a specific way. Okay. And to show you what that looks like, let's take a look at the editing side of a blog post, okay? And again, we're back in Daddy Brain, but this is what the backend is going to look like, give or take. Yours might look a little different depending on your WordPress theme and the contingencies you've set up within WordPress. Okay. So when you name this image, this one's just called balance. You guys can see right here. All right. So I didn't take the time to optimize this. But what it would say in the other case, for Cuppa SEO, it would say Google dash my dash business dash tips dash buy, and so on. Putting a dash in between each word makes it SEO friendly. Okay, so it would say Google My Business Tips by Cuppa SEO with each word having a dash in between it. No spaces, no underscores. Spaces and underscores will kill your SEO value for an image because it creates weird and unnecessary characters in the code, and Google doesn't like it. So when you're naming your image, use a dash. All right. If you've got questions about this, feel free to send me an email. I'm actually going to write a blog post this weekend about this. I can't believe I haven't written one already with screenshots on how to do this. Okay. So you name your image, and then when you upload your image into here, okay, and we'll do that now. We'll click on Add Media, right? There's a whole bunch of pictures. Let's say I want to add, I don't know, let's add the sleeping dad to the image. When you add this in, before you do so, you'll go into the alt image text and change that too. Okay. This may not be something you fully retain right now, but I want you guys to have an understanding of it. I'm going to show you again how to do that. On any back end or editor side of WordPress, you're going to see this. Okay. Little tiny icon of an image. Click on it. That's your Add Media button. You can go add a new one, okay, or go to your media library. In this case, we'll stick with the media library. Actually, you know what? Let's add a new one. Let's just add whatever we can find here. Okay, another cup of coffee for Cuppa SEO. Beautiful. I don't even know what it looks like, but what I'm doing now is I'm going into the image selector. Let's just do it one more time. Okay. Clicking on this, add media, add new. And then I have to go to the actual image, right? So I've already got it pulled up, but you can scroll through any of your files. I choose the image, and lo and behold, there it is. Okay. Now, before I load it into the page, let me show you something. Okay, if I click on this little, if I click on this little pencil, this allows me to look at some more information about this particular image. I click on it. We look down here, and you guys can see what I was talking about. The file name, another cup of coffee for yada yada. See the dashes in between each of the words. Okay, so what you want to do before you load this onto your blog post, just go into the file name, and it might be in a different spot on your blog. That's okay. Go into the file name, copy it, and paste it into your alt text region. Alt text is something that was originally designed for people who have some kind of impairment, visual impairment, a learning disability. So when you hover over an image, it speaks what the alt tag says, or the alt text says. So come in here, okay? And now get rid of the dashes and add spaces. Make it like a sentence or an incomplete sentence. Okay? And get rid of the JPEG. So now if someone's reading, or if their computer's saying something to them about that image that they're hovering over, it says another cup of coffee for Cuppa SEO. This was something I did on social media for fun. It doesn't have any real keywords in it except SEO, but I still took the time to name it proper. Okay. Hopefully this is making some sense to you guys. Once my image name is optimized and I've uploaded it, I've optimized my alt text now with the same exact content of the image. I insert it. You got to make that noise. And then what you've got is your image on the page. So there it is. Okay. There's ways to change the size of this, the positioning of it. Okay. We're not going to get too into that now because it's a little bit of a deeper dive and we've only got 10 minutes left. But you guys can see exactly what happens when we insert that image. So let's go ahead and check to see if anybody has any other questions. Okay, so we've got a question from Gretchen. In SEO, does a keyword in text carry the same weight as a keyword in a subheader? That's an excellent question. Let's address it quickly before we move on. So the answer is no. There is a hierarchy to the keywords on a page. So your H1 on page is going to have the most weight, so to speak, or the most strength, okay? Then an H2 would be second after that, followed by an H3, H4, and so on, okay? A text link, like Contact Cuppa SEO for your web design needs, has a little bit more authority and strength than the copy on the page. So essentially, the copy on the page is kind of last on the list, but it's still essential because if you've got 500 words, that's where you're going to be populating at least some of those keyword phrases, right? Your image also trumps the content, the actual words on a page. And imagery is really, I spend so much time on it because it's really low-hanging fruit. Most people, most SEO professionals don't optimize images, which baffles me because Google's looking. And if Google's looking and I have 200 or 300 images on my website, you can bet I want every single one of those images optimized. I want to get found. I want to give people good, relevant information. And if you're a landscaper or an artist or you do anything visual, you're a designer, man, people are looking at Google on the images tab. And if your images aren't optimized, they're not going to be found. Okay? So if you're a graphic artist and yours says, you know, graphic art of logo, graphic art of Shea Stadium, I'm from New York. That's what comes to mind. You know, graphic art of whatever. Google looks for that and gives relevant results, okay? So yeah, that hierarchy is there, starting with the H1, with the copy on the page being last. But don't get me wrong, it's still important, okay? So it looks like the last question we've got for right now. So what I want to address with you guys in the last few minutes is a few defining factors in what to look for on the editing side of your blog, okay? So let's go back here and let's take a look at Daddy Brain again. So these side nav, they'll be in different places. On some blogs, on some WordPress themes, they're over here. Sometimes they're collapsed. Sometimes they're accordion style always, but they folded up like this. So let's go through a couple of these things so you guys can understand what they mean. Starting with this little navigation bar up here, okay? Every single WordPress theme for your blog and for your pages is going to have a visual side and an HTML side. Simply put, the visual side is exactly what it sounds like, a visual representation of what the page or the blog post is going to look like when it's live, okay, once it's published. If we click on HTML, sometimes this will say text, okay? Same difference. It's actually just text or HTML. This is your code. So if you're more geeky and are more comfortable in code, there you go. You can use your code. If you're like many people and code is a bad four-letter word, stick with this and you'll find that your formatting is very similar to working in Microsoft Word or a similar application. Okay, so that's visual and HTML. Here, you've got some things that'll look familiar. You know, paragraph style, that's going to be how you decide what each piece of content is going to be. So for example, let's get rid of this big image. Just click the X to remove it. Now it's gone. Let's say I want to make this an H1 for some reason. I can come in here, click on H1. It immediately changes. Okay. One thing to note on a blog is that I always consider the title my H1, okay, on a blog. So you never want to repeat that down in the body of the blog because now there's two H1s and it's confusing to Google, okay? There can only be one, number one. So in this case, if I wanted this bigger, I'd just make it an H2. And you see the size changes. Or I'd make it an H3 if that felt too big, okay? So this is how you change those. We'll go ahead and change that back to body copy or paragraph style. And here you've got self-explanatory stuff, bold, ital, and whatever you've got highlighted will do exactly what you command it to do. Here, the bullet came out funny because the image is in the way. If I wanted this to be a bulleted list, though, I can just go ahead and highlight it, click on bullets. There you go. Pretty easy stuff, okay? A numbered list. Here's where you would insert a link. So let's say I wanted this entire sentence or headline to be a link. You click on these little chain links, and it will let you insert whatever URL you want here, okay? Something from your website, a different blog post, or if you're highlighting something somebody else talked about, which I don't always recommend because that brings somebody somewhere else, brings them away from you. But you put the URL in here, click on add the link, and it's live. Somebody can click on it, it'll take them there. This little button here, which almost looks like kind of maybe like a sandwich, is an insert read more tag. I don't use that much. Okay. The triple dots here are toggle advanced. On some WordPress themes, this little sandwichy looking thing is actually your advanced tab. Let's take a quick look at it. Brings down more options, strike throughs, underlines, justification, and so on. If you want to change the color of your font, you can. Okay. We've got a couple minutes left. I want to leave this top navigation, which again, once you guys mess around in this, you'll become comfortable with it. If you're not sure what something looks like, you click on preview and it'll show you exactly what it's going to look like. If it looks not to your liking, you can go back in and alter it before you publish it. Okay. When you're ready to publish a new post, see where this says update here? It'll actually say publish. You'll click on that and it's live to the world, which is kind of exciting. This section here is super important. Categories and tags. Confusing to most, but actually very simple. Okay? Categories, and you'll see I've got a decent amount here. I don't use most of these. Okay? Let's actually hop over to Kappa SEO to give you a more concise example. Categories are for the human eye. They are for people. They don't have SEO value. Google's not really caring about what's in the category. The reason why it's there is that if somebody wants to read all my bleats, they click on this category and it takes them to all my bleats, just like that. And now as a reader, I can check whatever I want. What is a bleat? I don't know what it is. Here we go. Okay. And then as a reader, I might say, hey, that was cool. Let me check out some of this other stuff. Oh, SEO. I'm totally confused about that. Now I've got this big bucket that's all about SEO and web design and videos. And what this does for your viewer is it gives them an easy way to find similar or like-minded content. Okay. And as you can see, we've got quite a few blog posts here about SEO. Makes it really easy once the person clicks on the category to pick whatever they want within that category. They need to be big buckets. Okay, you don't want to have more than like 10 to 15 categories, and 15 is pushing it. So you want to make them broad. All right. You see here are mine: branding, blogging, bleats, conversion. Try to make them pretty broad. You can always alter them over time. So that's a category for the human eye. The tag, as we discussed a little bit earlier, is for Google. It's for the search engines. And here's the tags here. Okay. For this blog post, I chose 4 keywords that are, of course, put through the blog post as well, through the content. No matter what you're writing about, whatever you're using in your headline and your image and your copy, you're going to want to put here too. The trick when you're categorizing and tagging a blog post is only do up to 5 per post. So you see here I've got 4. What I'm trying to say is that we don't want 10 tags and 10 categories. It's too much. Keep it at 5 or under. Okay. So we are at 2 o'clock. Somehow, some way, all the time has passed. If you guys have questions, specific or not so specific, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to answer. We've got a ton of content on my blog about blogging. I'm also going to send you guys a follow-up thank you email, which will include a free Blogging 101 ebook, which covered everything we talked about today in detail, and also some things that we weren't able to get to during the webinar. But that being said, I'd like to thank you all for coming and for joining us today for our Blogging 101 workshop, our webinar. My name is Joey Donovan Guido signing off, and happy blogging. Have a great day, guys.